Hey, before we begin today, we'd like to share a quick word from the heart. Studying the scriptures with you on Still Learning has been a profound blessing for me and Rebecca. And working together on this podcast has meant more than we can easily express. But as Dallin H. Oakes once taught about choosing the best over the merely good or better, we've come to feel that while this podcast has been a good work, even a better one, our best calling right now is elsewhere. Creating musical theater that helps build faith in Jesus Christ and a deeper love for Zion. So, with enormous gratitude and love for all of you who have joined us on this journey, this will be our final episode of Still Learning, at least for now. We hope to catch you again soon, somewhere else, doing your best work too. All right, this week we're in Genesis chapters 24 through 33, following the next generation of the covenant family, and it is messy, human, and unmistakably guided by God. Abraham sends a servant to find a wife for Isaac, and through prayer and divine timing, Rebekah is chosen. Isaac loves her, and the covenant continues. But then the next chapter shifts quickly from romance to rivalry. Rebekah gives birth to twins, Esau and Jacob. And before they're even born, God declares that the older will serve the younger. Jacob eventually secures both the birthright and the blessing, not without deception. Esau is furious. Jacob flees. On the run, Jacob has a dream at Bethel, a ladder reaching to heaven, angels ascending and descending, and the Lord reaffirming the covenant promises given to Abraham. Land, prosperity, blessing to all nations. Jacob makes a covenant of his own. Jacob then falls in love with Rachel, but is deceived into marrying Leah first. Years pass, wives, children, rivalry, prosperity. God multiplies them despite the chaos. Finally, Jacob returns home, wealthy but afraid. On the eve of meeting Esau, he wrestles through the night with a divine being. He refuses to let go without a blessing. His name is changed to Israel, one who prevails with God. When the brothers finally meet, instead of revenge, there is embrace. Genesis 24 through 33 is a story of covenant promises moving forward, not through perfect people, but through flawed, striving ones. God works through love, conflict, exile, and reconciliation to shape a nation and a new name.
I'm still learning, line upon line, slowly changing this heart of mine. Yes, I've got blind spots, they'll fade away, and I'll see clearly someday.
Welcome to Still Learning, the Come Follow Me podcast. My name is Gunnar Michael Anderson, and I'm here with my co-host, Rebecca Burnham. Rebecca, why don't you kick us off? What's going on?
I love that summary because these chapters, I remember it was while I was reading some of these chapters that I went, oh, if God could work with them, he can work with me. There's just so much pain and anguish and difficulty. And I think it's a good place to start with Rebecca. Because in these chapters, we get to see the very best of Rebecca and perhaps the worst of Rebecca. It starts when Abraham sends his servant Eliezer to go and find a wife for Isaac. And Rebecca meets Eliezer at the well, and he asks if she will give him some water, and she volunteers to draw for his camels as well. And that is a lot of water, which she hastened to draw. She responded as a woman clearly of faith when Eliezer told his message to her family that he was sent to get a wife for her cousin. She did not quibble at all. She was eager to go. She felt called. And so she went back to a land she knew nothing about, far away from her family, to join a new family, and demonstrates a great deal of faith. And then first of all, she's barren. And Isaac entreats the Lord. And then she is able to conceive. And she conceives not one, but two children, twins. And it appears that they're not getting along well in utero. I find that's an interesting part of this whole story.
From the beginning, they were born as rivals.
Yeah. Or perceived, like, who knows what exactly was going on. But she goes to talk to the Lord about it. And this is interesting. We talked last week about wrestling with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And in this instance, she doesn't understand what's going on with her. And she makes it a matter of prayer and petition to understand what's going on. So she receives a revelation. In Genesis chapter 25, it says, and the Lord, verse 23, and the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Now this revelation came to Rebekah. It is evident from the scriptural account that this revelation did not come to Isaac. And so then these 2 boys grow up, and they are not alike. And one of them is more attuned to his mother, and the other is more attuned to his father. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Well, certainly the mother preferred Jacob over Esau. And the father preferred Esau. So the scriptures say that Esau was a hunter and liked meat, and Isaac liked meat, and he liked the meat that Esau caught and cooked and prepared. And so the parents certainly had their favorites. That is clearly stated. Yeah.
Yeah. And favoritism, I think favoritism is always problematic. And you never even know where it starts, because as soon as one person has a favorite, then there's like the desire to overcompensate, and it's just messy. So there's this messy home life.
Yes, there's definite favoritism here.
Yep.
But I'm saying even if there is no favoritism, your kids, I think, will always think there's favoritism. I remember we have a picture of my wife holding my younger son as a baby, as an infant in her arms, right? And my older son is maybe 3 years old, and he's right here, next to my wife, looking at the, I know what he was doing. He was there with, making noises, playing with the baby stuff, right?
Yeah.
And my wife turns and she looks at my son, and he looks at her, and they're laughing together. And I took the picture. And my wife and I look at this picture of her with her 2 boys, and we think, oh, what a beautiful picture. We remember the moment. It's, everybody was loving on each other, right? And my younger son, as he got older, he'd look at that picture and say, but she's smiling at Leif. She's smiling at the older boy. She loves him more. And that younger boy helps us with this podcast. So I'll get some feedback on that memory.
Eric, you're loved.
He is.
Yeah. It's a natural thing that happens in families, is rivalry, right?
Yeah.
And it's especially difficult when it seems like there's treatment that maybe isn't equitable.
I'd like to share some on Rebecca at the well. I'd like to go back there, but
Let's do.
Okay. I really like the story about Rebecca at the well, and I think there are a lot of things that are applicable to us in our lives here. It just reads like a story, but I want to read a couple of the passages and then talk about it just a little bit. So, Abraham's servant has gone to where Abraham's from, where his relatives are, and he says, okay, now I'm going to go to the spring, and where the daughters of the people in town come out to get water, and they come out in the evening, so I'm going to hang out there. And he says, I will speak to a young woman, because he's there to find a wife for Isaac. And he says, and this is from the NIRV, the translation of the Bible. He says, I'll say to her, please lower your jar so I can have a drink. Suppose she says, have a drink of water, and I'll get some for your camels too. And like Rebecca just pointed out, he had quite a few camels. Then let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac. That's how I'll know you have been kind to my master being Abraham. So he's praying to the Lord, right? Lord God, you are the God of my master Abraham. And is praying to be successful. And so he kind of says, Lord, this is how I know you chose the person. Right? She's going to be somebody who's very willing to give me something to drink. And then she goes and takes care of my camels. And I think it's interesting that he tells the Lord how to talk to him, right? Then when he sees her, he sees her, and it says he hurried over to her and he says, please give me a little water from your jar. And she says, just like you said, without hesitation, have a drink, sir. She said she quickly lowered the jar to her hands and gave him a drink. After she had given him a drink, she said, I'll get water for your camels too. Just notices a need, takes care of it. I'll get water for your camels too. I'll keep doing it until they have enough to drink. So she quickly emptied her jar into the stone tub. Then she ran back to the well to get some more water. She got enough for all his camels. And the man didn't say a word. He watched her closely. He wanted to learn whether the Lord had given him success on the journey he had made. I bring it up only because this story really resonates with me. Because I feel like that's how I found my wife.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It wasn't that I needed a drink and I was like, get me a drink, woman. It wasn't that. But it was through watching her, what an incredibly beautiful heart she had. And the way she treated other people, more importantly, the way she treated her family. I remember in high school being interested in some girls and then going to their home and just seeing them scream at their siblings, with no patience. And I remember thinking, wow, that's the way she's going to talk to me. If we were to get married, I'm going to be on the receiving end of that. Right? And my wife, she was never that way. Yes, sometimes she'd express to me a little frustration maybe with one of her relations, but she never treated them poorly. I mean, she may have argued with them behind closed doors, but not, in front of me. And it was just, I saw a beautiful person. And I think sometimes I see that with young people. They get drawn into the physical beauty and they don't pause to think, some of that physical stuff will fade, but what's in their soul, what's inside them will always be there. It will remain. And she's just a wonderful, wonderful woman. She's a gorgeous human being, gorgeous daughter of God.
I love that. I think that's such an important lesson, that how people treat their family and also how they treat strangers who don't seem to have anything to offer them, right? Like this is a stranger who is a servant. He's not high status. And Rebecca treats him with such care and his camels with such care. I think those are really beautiful hallmarks of a person's character.
I agree. I think it's an incredible story. I think it's a great lesson to all of us that it's not just that there was this test and she passed the test. It's what was that test? It was a beautiful, loving test of compassion. And that's what I wanted to touch on. It's something for all of us there.
And that is wisdom to recognize that in Trudy, who I am sure was also very beautiful.
She was. She still is. She still
exactly.
Is.
That's how come it's so sure.
But she's married to somebody who isn't. I mean, I had very long, beautiful hair. When I ran, I looked like a horse with the mane flowing behind me. Now I struggle to tame the few hairs that I have left.
So then we move forward to the whole thing about birthright.
Yes.
Where birthright was both a blessing and a responsibility. It was a larger portion of your father's inheritance and a responsibility to take care of the rest of the family.
Right.
And we don't know the whole story about what was going on there with Jacob and Esau. My dad had some theories that I really appreciated. So my dad's theory was that Jacob was watching Esau and thought that maybe his brother didn't really value the birthright. He desired, kind of like Abraham desired way back when we hear about Abraham wanting to be a father of nations and a greater follower after righteousness.
I could see how somebody might just think that the birthright's a burden.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had to take care. You were going to get an inheritance without the birthright.
Yeah.
It wasn't that you were going to get 0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, with the birthright, you have to take care of the family,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I can see somebody saying, I just don't want that.
Yeah. And it is also possible that Rebekah told Jacob about the impressions she had, about the revelation she received when he was in her womb.
Yeah,
We don't know that story either.
yeah,
But then on the other side, there's some evidence when it talks about Esau being all red, hairy and red, that he may have had a medical condition that made it so that he was very, very, very hungry when he was hungry. And so what looked to Jacob like him not really caring about his birthright because he's ready to sell it for a bowl of porridge or a mess of pottage may have been that he really felt like he was in physical danger being so hungry.
yeah,
But in any case, these two brothers continue to be rivals until Isaac is getting old and ready to give his final blessings to his sons. So Isaac tells Esau, I want to give you my final blessing. Go get me some venison. And off Esau goes to get the venison. Now, here's my dad's theory. The place of women at this time may have been such that Rebekah was not free to tell her husband about the revelation she had received. And she decides she needs to take matters into her own hands so that God's work will go forward the way it ought to be. And what happens next is nothing short of deceptive and manipulative, right?
yeah. I also want to point out that Esau had married outside the family, so to speak, right? He had married a Hittite woman, and that really upset Isaac and Rebekah. And it talks about that right at the end of chapter 26.
Yeah. Not so much, though, that Isaac wasn't prepared to give Esau the
Correct.
eldest blessing.
Correct.
Yeah. So then Rebekah goes and takes Jacob aside and says, hey, your father's about to give Esau your blessing. You better make sure that that doesn't happen. So she says, go get some goats and we'll make that beef that he loves so much. And covers his skin with the skin of the kid goats so that it's hairy.
Right.
So then Jacob goes back in. He goes into his father pretending to be his brother Esau.
Right.
And his father recognizes his voice. He's blind, but he isn't deaf. His father suspects that something's up. He says, how'd you get back so quick?
Right.
So Jacob lies and says, well, the Lord blessed me. Here I am. I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done as thou badest me. And Jacob says, okay, come close. I want to feel you.
Yeah.
It's just so painful to read this, isn't it?
I wonder, could I carry on a deception that long? Could I? I don't know if I could even. I wouldn't even be able to take the first step. But I mean, Jacob was committed to make this thing happen.
And once he's in, he's afraid of being cursed instead of blessed.
Right. Right. His mom says, "I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. The curse will be on me."
Yeah.
If there be a curse. But he also puts on Esau's clothing. And I think Isaac was pretty smart because he comes up to bless him and he's able to smell him, right? He gets close enough so he can smell him. And he smells Esau's clothes and says, okay, I guess you are Esau.
Yeah. And then he blesses him. And just as soon as Jacob leaves, having received the blessing of the firstborn, which is, let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee, be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. So then he leaves, and Esau comes in. And Isaac instantly understands that he's been deceived. Now, so my dad's theory is that in this verse verse 33, where Isaac realizes what happened, it says, and Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. My dad's theory was that yea, and he shall be blessed is where Isaac recognizes that the blessing he gave was under the inspiration of God. He was deceived and thought he was giving it to his son, but the blessing came from the Holy Spirit. And yet, the fallout is because of the deception, and Esau is furious. Jacob has to flee for his life, leaving behind the whole entire inheritance.
That's right. I hadn't really thought about that. He ended up essentially leaving his birthright because not just his whole inheritance, but he wasn't able to take care of everybody.
Yeah. You could say he forfeited his blessings
Yeah.
by trying to obtain them through less than honest means.
Mm-hmm.
And which also broke Rebekah's heart, because this is the final farewell to her son. When Jacob at last returns, both his father and his mother will have passed away.
Yeah, and when Jacob leaves, this is in verse 41, it says, the day Esau says to himself, the days of sorrow over my father's death are near, then I'll kill my brother Jacob. And Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, so she sent her younger son Jacob and tells him, you got to run away and go to my brother Laban in Haran. Laban is in and out of this whole story involving Abraham and his descendants.
So then it's interesting what happens with Jacob in Haran. But first of all, on his way to Haran, the Lord lets him know that all is not lost, and it invites him into a covenant. He has a dream of a ladder to heaven, and it appears that Jacob at this time enters into a covenant with God. Then he gets to be tried with it all. So you wanted to say something about how Jacob and Rachel met. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So he goes there at Rebekah's behest, right? And when he's there, he sees Rachel and just falls in love with her. She's so beautiful.
First sight.
And he strikes a deal with Laban to marry Rachel. And man, it is just so foreign to me how things get confused, because I don't understand how they could get confused. But all I can imagine is that the women were completely covered and you just can't see anything. And he goes in and he thinks he's marrying Rachel, but Laban makes a switch on him and puts Leah in place. And Leah's the older sister, and Laban doesn't want the younger sister to get married before the older sister. And apparently Leah is not striking. Let me just put it that way. She's not a classic beauty, if you will. But he doesn't just marry her and not realize it's not Rachel. They end up sleeping together, and he doesn't realize it's not Rachel. He doesn't realize until the morning that this is the wrong girl. I married the wrong girl. I slept with the wrong girl. But that's when he realizes it. And he had to work for 7 years for Laban before he was allowed to marry Leah, who he thought was Rachel. And he gets very upset with Laban and says, no, you promised me Rachel. And Laban says, okay, you can have Rachel. I promise you Rachel, you can have Rachel. But
In a week.
you got to do your kind of week honeymoon thing, but you got to work for me. So in verse 20, so Jacob worked for 7 years so he could marry Rachel. But they seemed like only a few days to him because he loved her so much. I think it's just really sweet and romantic. But I feel for Leah in that situation, right?
Yeah, it is sweet, and it is so bitter. It's so bitter. I look at the story from Leah's perspective, because I have a sister, drop dead gorgeous, and she's 1 year younger than me. And it was always, she's socially adept. She can enter a room and every head turns. She is just, and a delight. Everybody wants to spend time with her. And I grew up in her shadow, and just reading this story about Rachel and Leah, I felt like I was the one with the beautiful eyes. And just the pain. But Do you suppose the morning after Jacob gets married the first time, when he wakes up and realizes he has been deceived in the dark, do you suppose he remembered pretending to be Esau?
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really thought about him deceiving Isaac. How that might have played back in his own life with getting married and marrying the wrong woman.
Yeah. And I wonder if that experience helped him understand the pain that he had caused. I wonder if he woke up in the morning and he sees that he has been married off to the wrong daughter. And I imagine Leah was pretty scared. I imagine he looked over and saw her and realized what his father-in-law had just done to him. And his thoughts may have been a little violent. And then all of a sudden, he remembers. I did this too. So then, he gets to marry Rachel. And now these two women are both feeling inadequate. Leah is trying desperately to earn his love, and it keeps saying that the Lord is mindful of her. And she thinks that maybe she can earn his love by giving him children. And Rachel already has his love, but still fears that she can't retain it unless she can give him children. And so then we get to add on the two maid servants, slaves who become concubines, and the battle between them all to try and win his love. I
think it's interesting because now we start giving birth to the tribes of Israel, right? And Leah is the first one to do that.
And the second and the third.
And the first, second, and the third all come from Leah. You get Reuben, Simeon, and Judah. All trace their lineage back to Leah.
Yeah.
And then Rachel can't have any kids, so she gives Bilhah to Jacob, and Bilhah produces Dan and Jacob. I think it's interesting. What's so foreign to me is the guys in the story, going all the way back to Abraham and Hagar. It's like, all right, fine. Throw the woman at me. I know what to do.
I feel like this culture, posterity mattered to this culture in a way that I think we have a hard time bending our minds around.
Yeah.
So here Jacob is, he obtained his birthright by deceit, then had to flee, leaving, he had nothing.
Nothing except the blessing.
Here with a blessing.
Yeah.
And no way to enforce it.
Later on, he says he all he had was his walking stick.
Yeah. So he flees with a walking stick, and God meets him and makes a covenant with him. Hey, Jacob, trust me. Follow me, and I'll be with you. Jacob finds it in his heart to forgive his father-in-law. It appears that he really endeavors to care for all of his wives.
So I was just thinking that blessing that Isaac gave, relating it to our day, this was a blessing that apparently Isaac only gave once. Right? Do you think it's a patriarchal blessing?
That makes sense, doesn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that it's a blessing that he takes with him for his whole life.
Right.
It's something that is, it kind of lays out his life for him.
Yeah. And Jacob will in turn do the same. He will give a final blessing to each of his sons, right?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought of it as a patriarchal blessing, but I think maybe it is.
So anyway, here he is with nothing, and he gets to learn to trust God. And then I love what happens, which is he now has a deceptive employer. slash father-in-law
Yeah.
who wants to cheat him of his wages.
Right.
Laban says, okay, you decide, what do you want? Which goats do you want? And Jacob says, well, I want the speckled goats. And all of a sudden, all of the goats that are being born are speckled.
Right.
And so then Laban changes his wages. And what happens? All of a sudden, whatever it is that Laban changes his wages to, that's how the goats, the majority of the goats, are born.
I think it's interesting that Laban never says, okay, you're going to have 16 goats, or you'll have a third of the goats. He says, you're going to have the striped ones. Then, bam, they're all striped. You'll have the speckled ones. Bam, they're all speckled. So Laban ends up with like nothing. And Jacob's wealth starts really multiplying.
Yeah. And I really feel like what is happening here is Jacob is learning there is no need to be deceptive. There is no need to manipulate. I can serve the Lord.
Right.
And if I will serve the Lord and I will act justly, the Lord will take care of it. I do not have to enforce my birthright. I just need to try and do what's right. And so then finally, he heads back home. And as he's heading home, because the Lord tells him to go home. So he's heading home. Rachel at last has her own child. And I imagine there's just this hope of, oh, at last we'll have peace. It's been hard. And they start heading home. And Jacob knows that he wants to reconcile with his brother. I think Jacob now understands what he's done to his brother. And he wants to make amends. And so he sends a messenger out to tell his brother that he's coming. And the messenger comes back with some bad news.
Yeah. I mean, Jacob's afraid of his brother. Yeah. And I think he was very wise to give his brother a heads up. I'm coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the messengers come back to Jacob and say, yeah, we came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Well, 400 men is more than an honor guard.
Right.
And now Jacob is terrified. And this is when the wrestle begins, right? In verse 9 of Genesis 32, he says, he reminds the Lord of the Lord's promises to him, of the Lord's direction. O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saidst unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant, for with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. Now, I love that he starts with gratitude. He starts with promises that God has given him. Then he moves to gratitude. And now he makes his request, deliver me from the hand of my brother. And he's no longer focused on wealth. He just wants to preserve his family, his people. And so then I love what happens next, because remember, Esau was so furious because Jacob took the ruling and the promise of the greater inheritance. Now, Jacob is no longer claiming anything. He has turned it all over to the Lord. And he sends a bunch of servants in a parade, only a parade far enough apart that they can't see each other, right? First one goes, and each one of them is to go to his brother Esau and deliver the message. When Esau says, whose servant are you and where are you going? Each of them is to deliver this message. These flocks be thy servant Jacob's, and it is a present unto my lord Esau. And behold, also he is behind us. Jacob is not returning to claim, hey, remember me? I'm the one Dad blessed that you were going to serve me. Instead, he is saying, I'm coming back to submit.
Yeah. And the thing is, you described it exactly right. But I'd like to put just a little more detail in there to help people understand these herds. It says, starting in verse 14, that he chose 200 female goats and 20 male goats. So that was one herd he sent. And Esau receives this message. He has 220 goats. I mean, that's not a few goats. Right. And then he chose 200 female sheep and 20 male sheep. So now he gets another 220. And then he chose 30 male camels and their little ones. I don't know how many baby camels there were. And like all these camels come. And then he chooses 40 cows and 10 bulls. That's a bit of a herd of cows and bulls. And then 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. So you got donkeys, cows and bulls, camels, sheep, goats. 5 different groups of all these herds. He's hitting Esau 5 times with big gifts. Right?
You know what just occurred to me as you're reading this? He's going to need all those 400 men to take care of all of these.
He disabled the army. That's funny.
Just the humility in this is so beautiful to me. And it says to me that Jacob is no longer worried about his future. He knows God will take care of him. Like in terms of all of the wealth and all of that. He is still scared enough that he can't sleep, and he separates he puts his people in 2 bands, and then he takes his kids and his wives and puts them on a separate little space because he wants them to be protected most of all. And he spends all night wrestling with an angel.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that the scripture is written. It's as though he doesn't know that he's wrestling with an angel, because it starts off by saying that he was wrestling with a man, and then the man said, "Let me go. It is morning." But Jacob knows this is not just a man, because he says, "I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me." The man says to him, "Well, what's your name?" He says, "Jacob. Jacob's my name." And the man says, "Your name will not be Jacob anymore. Instead, it will be Israel. You have wrestled with God and with people, and you have won." And Jacob says, please tell me your name. But he replied, "Why do you want to know my name?" Then he blessed Jacob there. So Jacob named the place Peniel. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. He said, quote, "I saw God face to face, but I'm still alive." Close quote. President Nelson told us that Israel means let God prevail. And I think this statement, "You have wrestled with God and with people, and you have won," I think that's a message for all of us. All of us who are successful in the wrestling. It's not that we beat God, but that we came to know God. Through the wrestle.
It's our confidence in him. It is our faith in him that gives us power to wrestle. I try to think, what did the wrestle entail? We think of it, it's written as if the wrestle is a physical grappling.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I wonder if that's symbolic language or if there's more to it. I feel like as Jacob anticipates meeting his brother and remembers the wrongs he's done to his brother and looks back on all these years, that he may have been wrestling with his own history also, wrestling to understand and take accountability for the mistakes that he had made, wrestling with his fear, remembering, anchoring in the promises God had given him, and then saying, "I claim those promises." And as I understand it, the word Israel means both let God prevail and also prevail with God. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that is a contradiction. I think it's actually a recipe. That when we let God prevail, when we trust him, when we honor what he invites us to do, we gain the confidence that we can claim the blessings that he has already promised us. We can claim and not let go.
There was a prison warden, who had implemented some programs to help reform the prisoners. And somebody at a higher level in the prison hierarchy was meeting with the warden in the prison, and he was saying, "Listen, this is a waste of time. A leopard can't change its stripes." And the warden said, "Well, you should know as well as anybody, I don't manage leopards. I manage men. And men can change." And that's what we see here, I think, with Jacob. We see that he has spent a long time changing. He has seen God bless him, come through with his commitments, to the point that, from my reading of this, is that by the time he left Laban, he was wealthier than Laban, which created some jealousies.
So then the next morning, Esau arrives, and Jacob comes forward and bows down 7 times before his brother. And Esau, he says, "What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? What are all these gifts you sent me?" And Jacob says, "These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord." What a difference between what happened last time Esau saw Jacob. And Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself." And Jacob says, "No, if I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face as though I had seen the face of God. And thou wast pleased with me." And this just really hit me this week because when we are able to overcome our enmity with our brother or our sister, and we see each other face to face, that is holy. That is like seeing the face of God. When we can see God in our hitherto enemy's face, it's just so beautiful. And so the brothers are reconciled.
Well, my favorite verse here in 33 is verse 4. So Jacob, in verse 3, he bows down 7 times to the ground, right? And then verse 4 says, "But Esau ran to meet Jacob. He hugged him and threw his arms around his neck. He kissed him, and they cried for joy." So Jacob is so afraid that Esau's going to try to kill him. And it isn't just that Esau was happy to see him. It isn't just that he had forgiven him. This reminds me a lot of the prodigal son, the parable that Christ tells. Esau running to meet him. There's so much forgiveness. And I think it's really beautiful how much humility Jacob showed to his brother. And really, at that moment, he was treating his brother as the person he really was, the brother with the birthright, He was treating him as his elder.
How is the story of Jacob and Esau a pattern or a recipe for us to resolve our conflicts?
To me, there are a couple of things here, and I don't know if I'm being too superficial about this or not, so please redirect me. But I don't know what was going on in Esau's mind. The scriptures don't tell us that, right? They just say he got 400 men together, and it implies conflict, but we don't know that's going to happen. We know that before Jacob left, Esau said he was going to kill him. So we know there was real enmity there when Jacob left. We don't know if Esau's heart softened when he ended up with everything anyway. We don't know, right? What we do know from the scriptures, and I suppose because we know this is where the message is for us in our day, is that he knew he had wronged his brother. And he made sure that his brother knew that he knew. By these waves overwhelming generosity and wealth being just given to his brother and then bowing several times. So in our day, I think what the message is when you come to the realization that you have wronged somebody, you can right that wrong by true humiliation, true demonstration of your repentant behavior. And then the other thing is, at the end of the day, we really do love each other. We're all brothers and sisters. There is something in there, even inside your most bitter rival or enemy. There really is something in there to love. You just have to find it. There's a proverb that I really like. I don't think it's this story particular, but it's related. Proverbs 25, 21, and 22. So reading from the King James Version. If thine enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat. And if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. I think that is very much a New Testament principle that Christ would teach with love. But then comes the Old Testament zinger. Verse 22, for thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward thee. I do think that the message there is to reward evil with good. And at some point, those bad feelings go away. Just because somebody is angry with me doesn't mean I have to be angry with them. Just because somebody treats me poorly doesn't mean I have to treat them poorly. Just because Esau wants to kill me doesn't mean I have to go after Esau with guns and knives. Jacob went after him with kindness. And maybe it was that kindness that softened Esau. I've certainly seen it in my life when I've had difficulties with a relationship. Usually my examples have to do with work, where people are being very unkind at work. Usually it's political, it's some kind of power move somebody's trying to make. And I learned over the years that the way you get past that is by being kind and patient and getting to know the person better, not by having knockout, drag out fights with them.
I love how in this story, Jacob's put away his whole I'm the special one.
Yeah.
And it's not lack of faith to say, yeah, I've been promised these things, but I didn't obtain them honestly, surrendering, He was promised the birthright. Now he comes forth. He's not rejecting what the Lord has offered, but he is repenting. And does the Lord give him back everything that he has given up? I think he does.
Well, I got lost with it. Are we talking about Esau or are we talking about Jacob?
It is not a lack of faith on Jacob's part. Although he received a birthright blessing, to turn around and say, my brother, my older brother, I am your servant. Because he's repenting. I think what you've basically said, Gunnar, is that we are able to overcome our conflicts as we truly repent and let God prevail. Trust in him, trust in his ways, and he will work it out.
It reminds me so much of Noah and the ark. Because it was a similar situation where they built this ark, they get shut up in it, and they have no way to steer this thing. And they just have to completely depend upon the Lord. They have to just let God prevail, and he'll take care of them. And I think that's a beautiful message.
Yeah. Well, and so we have a song about that today. I want to share the story of the song first.
Yes, let's hear it.
So this song is written by 18-year-old. She was then 18 years old. Janessa Gibson. And she wasn't able to join us today, but she shared this story about the song. She heard President Nelson's talk, Let God Prevail, and it touched her deeply and became her motto. And then her mom suggested that she write a song. And there was a devotional that she and her sisters were performing at 3 months down the road, and Mom said, why don't you write a song about Let God Prevail for the devotional? And that was a very intimidating thought, but she sat down and she felt the inspiration. She wrote a chorus, and then nothing came. And she got busy with life, and 2 weeks before the devotional, she's like, I got to write that song. So she worked, and nothing came. And 1 week before the devotional, she was really concerned. So she says, I tried to find other songs, but just didn't feel like any were right. The day of the devotional, I ended up getting up at 4 a.m. I remember I prayed, then practiced violin for a little bit, and all of a sudden the inspiration was there. I've had very few times in my life where I've received clear inspiration. This ended up being one of those times. When people say God is an 11th hour God, that really is the truth. The devotional day was the craziest day of my life. I went from having only the chorus to writing the whole song in less than 24 hours and performing it with my sisters that night. Through this process, God taught me to trust Him. It really is true that the smallest amount of faith can make a miracle happen. There's no doubt in my mind that God fed me the inspiration for this song, and along the way taught me how important it is to wait on Him. Of course, I would have preferred to receive the inspiration months before the devotional, but God gave me just enough inspiration to believe I could do it and keep trying. Even now, 4 years later, I still look back on this experience and draw on the things the writing process taught me. I learned that God's plan is better than my own. Waiting on Him is always worth it. And if we are willing to let God prevail in our lives, He will meet us where we're at and make it even better than we can imagine. So here's the song.
With the Lord as my guide through the struggles of life, in a world where it's so easy to lose my way, I will look to Thee for strength, even when my heart can take all the pressures of this life I have to face. I know that heaven's eyes will guide my way. Just let God prevail, He is by your side. Just let God prevail through the storms of this life. And when you feel as if He has left you all alone, His hand is stretched forth, He will carry you home. Just let God prevail. With a humble heart, I'm down on my knees. Oh Lord in heaven, please hear my plea. I feel the walls caving in, I can't escape the sins. Oh Lord, release this pain so I can breathe. Please wrap me in your arms and hear my plea. Just let God prevail, He is by your side. Just let God prevail through the storms of this life. And when you feel as if He has left you all alone, is stretched forth, He will carry you home. Just let God prevail. Ooh, give me Nephi's courage, give me Alma's faithful heart, give me the strength of the stripling warriors to do my part. I am here to serve my Lord, through His power I'm divine. With His grace I know that heaven is my God. Just let God prevail, He is by your side. Just let God prevail through the storms of this life. And when you feel as if He has left you all alone, His hand is stretched forth, He will welcome you home. Just let God prevail. Just let God
I just love that song. It's been playing in my mind all day. And I love the testimony that goes with it and the invitation that we each have to let God prevail in our lives. So Gunnar, what's your takeaway today?
Well, I think, it's hard to not walk away with that message about letting God prevail. And there's so many ways to let God prevail. We see in this last story here with Jacob and Esau about, there are these blessings that they both got that happened. And Jacob eventually, he keeps trying to steal an inheritance. He keeps trying to steal wealth. And when he backs off and just starts acting with integrity, the Lord starts giving him the striped sheep, the spotted sheep, the speckled sheep. Starts building his wealth and taking care of him. And then he starts acting in a way that I think is in alignment with the teachings of Jesus Christ, which we know that the gospel of Jesus Christ was taught to Adam. So we know that was still there. And when he's respecting his older brother, for me, it's about moving forward with faith in Christ and believing the teachings such that we can implement them. And before you believe it, you have to know them. So you need to continually learn so that you know them. That's,
I love that.
for me. That's it.
And for me, a big takeaway is God does not just work with the people who are in the right.
Yeah.
He works with us as we learn to recognize that we're not in the right. And He shows us how to repent and that He will take care of us. And it is safe to repent. That is the only safety.
Right. I mean, it's the flawed people in this world are not the other people in this world. We're flawed too. Give everybody some grace.
We're still learning. So thank you for joining us today. Just like you, we're still learning.